In 1974, Tactical Studies Rules first published Dungeons & Dragons. By 1984, reporters around America had linked D&D to 3 tragic cases of childhood suicide or homicide. The disappearance and later suicide of James Dallas Egbert III in 1979 to 1980, the suicide of Irving Bink Pulling in 1982, and the murder of Mary C. Towie by Ronald G. Adcox and Darren Lee Molitor in 1984. Often when a tragedy involves young people, grieving parents try to attribute their child's behavior to something in order to find meaning in what happened as a part of the closure process. Perhaps the low-hanging fruit, a simple answer, would be to blame a morally ambiguous influence. The usual litany of bad teen influences includes rock music, violent television, and smutty movies. By 1985, concerned parents, evangelists, reactionaries, and other so-called authorities waged a campaign to add D&D to the list. Was their effort an honest attempt to challenge the influence of an evil game that many bright and promising children spent hours a week playing? Was there perhaps a deceiver in their midst? Was a powerful and authoritative figure arguing in bad faith with the ulterior motive of personal gain? Conviction ran high with the evangelical hardliners. Academics lent their arcane arts to the fray. The craftsmen and champions of the game bent their backs in dedication to the cause of defending their legacy, but there was a traitor in their ranks. Lines were drawn and standards were raised on the field of battle. It was a time for heroes and villains, for sword and sorcery, and for gods and demons. This was Fundies and Fanboys. Patricia Pulling, mother of Irving Pulling, cast down the gauntlet. If kids can believe in a god they can't see, then it's very easy for them to believe in occult deities they can't see. Reverend Fred Perna answered the call to arms. Anybody who plays this game needs some kind of deliverance. They began with the mission to ban D&D from schools. At the time, schools would sometimes employ games of D&D in their gifted and talented programs. It's a collaboratively interactive game that stimulates the imagination, rewards reading for comprehension, and involves mathematical calculation. However, as Pulling and her organization, bothered about Dungeons & Dragons, or BAD, argued, the risks to children far exceeded the rewards. As she states in her book, The Devil's Web, Who is Stalking Your Children for Satan?, the motives of the BAD organization are based on a concerted effort to inform the public of the negative effects of fantasy role-playing games and, we hope, to save lives. It was a concerted effort indeed. Though the book's language is seething with hellfire and brimstone, it also enlists the support of secular authority. That authority comes in the polymorphous form of Dr. Thomas Radecki. With bravado, he intones to the reader, as a practicing psychiatrist as well as the research director of the National Coalition on Television Violence, I have now testified in 8 trials connected to entertainment violence. 6 of these have involved Dungeons & Dragons as at least one element. All have involved young men between the ages of 14 and 20 who have become seriously desensitized to violence and intoxicated with violent entertainment. If the thought of children turning to Satan and demonology hadn't galvanized the reader, certainly the weighty words of this seasoned psychiatrist would. The alliance of Priestess Patricia and Radecki the Healer had forged a provocative interpretation of psychology in fantasy games. Role-playing, a technique used by therapists for behavior modification, is the foundation of the game, warned the priestess. Role-playing can modify behavior for the better if one emulates positive roles, but certainly emulating evil roles will have a detrimental effect, she conjectures. By 1989, their partnership had become a fruitful one. Having established themselves as the vanguard of the crusade, Pulling and Radecki would go on to testify in a number of murder trials. In some cases, they would testify in the same trials. Their unlikely partnership would not be the last curious admixture in this strange saga. Jack Chick, noted fundamentalist publisher of illustrated religious tracts, made a marvelous ally when he partnered with a sorcerer. Yes, a real sorcerer. In his 1984 tract entitled Dark Dungeons, Jack Chick paints a gruesome cautionary picture. 2 young women are at a game of D&D with their friends. One young woman's character, a thief, is killed by a trap. The other woman's character, a cleric, reaches 8th level and the dungeon master tells her she's ready to learn real magic. The dungeon master takes the cleric to a witchcraft ritual. Later, she manipulates her father out of $200 worth of D&D books. In a shocking scene, it is revealed that the young thief, overcome with grief over her character's death, has committed suicide. When the cleric laments to her friends in the witch coven, they chastise her. At school, the cleric is confronted by a Christian classmate who takes her to a meeting led by a speaker who was formerly involved in witchcraft. After the speaker performs an exorcism on her, they burn all her D&D books. The speaker featured in that tract is none other than William Schnoebelen. In his essay, Straight Talk on Dungeons & Dragons, Schnoebelen confesses his background as a witch high priest and a Satanist. He alleges that writers from Tactical Studies Rules consulted with him for his expertise on magical and satanic rituals. Having given TSR quite the thorough and authentic description of the means to summon demons, he warns us that children playing D&D could inadvertently summon the evil beings just by playing the game. Dark spirits, he reasons, probably don't know the difference between a fantasy game and a sincere summoning. He goes on to mimic much of Pulling's warnings about behavior modification and brainwashing, and he even quotes Radecki saying, "The game of Dungeons & Dragons is causing young men to kill themselves and others." What a grave concern! Spirits may not know the difference between a magic ritual and a child's game. Radecki warned us that players of the game might similarly be unable to tell what is real from what is imaginary. The kids start living in the fantasy and they can't find their way out of the dungeon. Whether Friar Chick and Schnoebelen the Sorcerer can tell the difference between reality and fantasy might be an equally troublesome problem. Odd pair that they were, their charismatic talents found fellowship with those of Pulling and Radecki. Their crusading party strode forth making mighty and daunting attacks. Their offense deserved a measure of respect and an adequate answer. Could Grandmaster Gygax and his loyal cohorts respond in kind?